How can cities promote more sustainable pathways, future-proof their mobility systems, and become stronger to address climate change, pollution, road fatalities, and future pandemics? Next up, a discussion on resilience, sustainable urbanization, health, and climate.
Welcome to the SDG Action Zone and this session on supporting urban mobility through green transportation. My name is Stefanie Holzwarth and I work in the urban mobility team at the United Nations Human Settlements Programme, in short, UN Habitat. I am very excited to spend the next 45 minutes with a great lineup of speakers, including national and local governments, a transport operator, civil society representatives, and development partners. Together, we will get to know approaches on sustainable urban mobility from all around the world, including from Ethiopia, Brazil, South Africa, Kenya, and Germany. In the aftermath of COVID-19, cities will have to take the right direction when urban life returns back to normal. Cities will also have to promote more sustainable pathways in which economic development is decoupled from private motorization. But I believe that we have a window of opportunity to learn from the current pandemic and to build back better cities with better mobility systems that are more responsive to climate change, but also to air pollution or to road fatalities. Only then the world would be able to achieve the sustainable development goals, the ones especially that are particularly relevant for transport, such as the goal on climate change, the one on sustainable urbanization, and the one on good health and well-being. But without further ado, I would like to invite Her Excellency Ms. Dagmawit Moges, the Transport Minister of Ethiopia, to provide her keynote speech and share with us the experience of greening the transport sector in Ethiopia from a national government's perspective. Over to you, Ms. Moges.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And hello, everyone. I'm glad to be part of this platform. Really, it's going to help us to get experience of other countries as well. Ethiopia is a big country in terms of both size and population. For a country which is rapidly trying to transform its economic setup from agriculture to industrialization is one of the major concern is how the enabler sector, the transport sector, is contributing its part for this big target. Ethiopia is now taking a series of reforms to transform the overall economic and social setting of the country with the aim of lifting the country to a middle income and prosperous nation. In the coming 10 years, we have planned to become Africa's competitive grain producer and exporter, largest tourist destination. And the transport sector in Ethiopia underpins our citizens' right to mobility and plays a crucial role in ensuring socio-economic well-being of our people. Our recently formulated National Transport Policy and 10 years Transport Sector Perspective Plan have greatly emphasized the need to expand transport infrastructure and services, increase and foster the connectedness between lowest administrative divisions with each other and with the regions and other African continents as a whole, which is expected to be part of Agenda 2063. To realize this, we have planned to increase the current all-weather road coverage from 144,000 to 245,000, and to increase the express road that we have currently, which is 202, to reach to 2,900 kilometers. The length of our railway line network is expected to increase from its current status, which is 902 kilometers, to over 4,199 kilometers in the coming 10 years. Besides, there is a plan to introduce the first cable transport and pipeline transport in our country, and also to develop rivers and lakes transport infrastructure. The aim of my government is not only to construct transport infrastructure alone, as Ethiopia is a big country, it is clear that much work still remains to connect places as there are still rural missing links. But accessibility alone may not bring the required output. We are now also focusing more on mobility component. As we introduce more rural accessible localities, it is a must to enhance mobility for the sake of seamless passenger transport as well as improvement of freight and logistics industry. As the largest number of Ethiopian population resides in the rural areas, rural mobility will be our greatest concern area of focus. In both transport infrastructure development and mobility concerns, the aim of my government is to envision an accessible, integrated, people-oriented, safe, and environmentally sound, and of course, globally competitive transport system. We are envisioning and acting for such target because sustainable mobility is much for us. As a developing country, it's also important to effectively utilize our scarce resources and bring resilient infrastructure and services that could easily cope up with the recurrent climate change effects and ever increasing import and export tonnage. We are choosing sustainable mobility because we are now preferring a more ecological, suitable transport system. In addition to our policy and 10 years perspective plan, we have implemented a non-motorized transport strategy as we are well aware of all its importance. You all have witnessed that we have been celebrating and informing the public through our notable motto, Mgedle, which several urban residents of Ethiopia have got necessarily knowledge and awareness regarding the importance of car-free days and all its related benefits. Days ago, we have successfully accomplished the recent Wagner Day for walking and cycling. The major Ethiopian urban centers, including Addis Ababa, Prado, Adama, Bahar Dar, and Azar, have similarly celebrated the event successfully. Moving forward, we have planned to celebrate Walking and Cycling Day in every last Sunday of every month. We are doing this because we need to conduct constant awareness creation campaigns regarding the importance of non-motorized transport in general and its subcomponents in particular. Better utilization of our streets for cycling, walking, socializing will be our new norms that could be seen in our major streets as it helps our urban residents to improve their health records, and even to transform the attitude that gave much attention to street for cars than that of street for people. The other indicator which shows we are giving due attention for sustainable mobility is our greatest concern regarding mass transport system. In our transport policy, some of the basic principles used in the preparation of the document include strong phrases like transport sector should operate sustainable intercity public mass transport. Our sustainable urban transport system should consider that transport vehicles is preferred from non-motorized to the highest passenger carrying capacity, ones that also uses renewable energy alternatives. It's also well known that in cities like Addis Ababa, more than half of the population uses walking as form of transport. The share of public transport in Addis Ababa, for instance, is about 30%, which is minimal amount based on the experience observed in the world's major metropolitan cities. In this city, the number of small cars is by far very high as compared to that of the public transport. According to the recent data, Addis Ababa has only 2,100 public transport buses. However, the demand for transport in the city is around 4 million. We are currently supplying only 68% of the demand, which has created an observable backlog in the supply side. So to change this story, we are now undertaking series of actions. And for instance, the first bus rapid transit or BRT lane construction project is already commenced in Addis Ababa to link the most populous northwest side of the city with the southern west part of the city, which is believed an area that inhabits nearly 40% of the city's dwellers. In addition to this, northwest to southwest corridor BRT construction will soon start 6 more BRT corridors in Addis, which altogether help the city's residents to access more decent, fast, efficient, and public transport networks. In addition, we're planning to increase the number of buses in the city. In the coming month, which is the coming October, the city will have additional 400 buses that may be added to the current 700 buses that we have. It's believed that Addis Ababa requires more than 4,000 buses altogether, and our plan is to increase the target and to attain this number. We have similar plans to expand more public transport alternatives to Ethiopian urban centers. And currently in Ethiopia, we have about 13 urban centers that have their own public transit networks, but it's not enough. It shows a lot of work remains to be done. We are preferring sustainable mobility for a number of reasons, encouraging and expanding transport systems operating on renewable energy without compromising the safety of the natural environment by ensuring the transport sector that does not harm the natural environment is now our priority. As one of the principles of our transport policy, the transport sector should be environmentally friendly and compatible with our natural environment. So Ethiopia has now installed more than 7,000 kilometers railway line, which is fully operational using renewable electricity as form of energy. And the entire construction of more than 4,199 kilometers of railway line is also planned to use this renewable energy as a source. In addition, we have planned to bring more than 500 electric-enabled buses in our public transportation scheme. And recently, Hyundai Motors assembly plant in Ethiopia has introduced the first locally assembled electric vehicle, which we hope the number of such vehicles to increase accordingly within a short period of time. We are now also discouraging the import of second-hand cars by levying heavy taxes, about 700% on the imports. And altogether, my ministry and the Ethiopian government in general are now discouraging the importation of old cars and has given due attention for both mass transport and vehicles that depend on renewable energy alternatives. As our transport policy and 10 years perspective plan are prepared according to the climate resilient green economy strategy contents and the Paris Climate Change Agreement, which my country, Ethiopia, is one of the signatories, we believe that our transport-related infrastructure projects have had adverse effect on the natural environment. Our policy and our 10 years perspective plan clearly consider this matter, and we are planning to significantly reduce the impact of our infrastructure projects like roads and railways construction to consider the concern of environment greatly, and they may be evaluated according to their impact level on the environment. To realize a sustainable transport infrastructure development, we have put forward several strategies and different kinds of actions that are being taken. Rehabilitation of forest activities or forests affected during the construction of transport infrastructure, strengthening environmental impact assessment prior to construction of transport infrastructure, preparing transport sector standards in compliance with the climate resilient strategies, put in place a standard to determine a maximum operating life of imported vehicles, and supporting the private sector to engage in an automotive industry and even help the private sector to set up assembly units are some of the interventions we have planned to implement. To realize sustainable transport, we have also given due attention to attain equitable benefits for women and youth. To realize this, we have strategies to integrate the issue of women in our infrastructure and service provision by directly incorporating their special needs and also give women and youth opportunities in the job industry, especially in the project related to roads development, maintenance, transport service, and others. Moreover, to bring sustainable transport system, we have a plan to give due attention to vulnerable sector of the society, which we are going to bring compulsory consideration of vulnerable section of the society in the construction of transport infrastructure and service provision as well. Regarding road safety, it's well known that road safety is one of our biggest concerns. Recent data reveals that fatality rates due to road crashes in Ethiopia is one of the world's most fatal. In the past 2 years, we have achieved reduction in the rates of casualties, yet still Ethiopia is losing more than 4,000 people each year from roads-related accidents and casualties. During the third Global Ministerial Road Safety Conference in Stockholm, we have forwarded to world ministers and the United Nations Road Safety Fund and WHO that we should give due attention together with the world states to reduce fatality trends and accepted the Stockholm Declaration, which intends to have the number of casualties by the end of 2030. In Ethiopia, recent fatality rate is around 34.3 per 10,000 vehicles, and we are remaining to reduce this number. We are aiming to reduce this number to that of 10 per 10,000 cars or vehicles in the coming 1 decade, which makes it more than the target of the world already promised to reach. Starting from our transport policy to our 10 years perspective sector plan, we have given due concern for safety in general and road safety in particular, as it contributes to the largest share of the calamities. In Ethiopia, aviation, railway, maritime, and road transport has formulated their 10 years target to reduce any form of fatality related to service provisions. To realize the reduction of road fatality rates in Ethiopia, very soon we are going to implement national road safety policy that aims to bring detailed strategies and interventions. And besides, we are now starting the organizational and mandate study of the new Road Safety Commission, which will soon be starting full operation, aiming to give greater concern to road safety and its related post-crash responses. Moreover, we currently have installed nearly more than 17,000 speed reducers in our buses and heavy vehicles, mostly to reduce speed, which is considered as one of the greatest contributors to fatal accidents. We will continue installing such equipments more ahead. We have varieties of technology related to plan to reduce fatality rates, such as deployment of speed guns to regional states and city governments, and to carry out regulatory enforcement actions in a more strengthened manner. To reduce road fatality challenge of Ethiopia, we have also been able to study more accident-prone black spots in major 2,000 kilometers of road corridor across the country, and have also identified the most prone spots, which we are going to take countermeasures to reduce and solve fatality causes once and for all. Overall, sustainable transport and road safety has been given due attention in our government, as these are critical to our sustainable economic development and social well-being, as transport is an enabler. If it becomes sustainable, resilient, safe, and efficient, it's no doubt that the entire economic and social setup of the country would reach its apex in a very short period of time. So, to realize this visionary plan of Ethiopia, I ask every one of you to closely work with us, realize a well-advanced and prosperous Ethiopia along with us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for all the great work that you have showcased today. And we really do appreciate your leadership and your great efforts that can definitely be a benchmark for many other countries and other cities. So thank you very much. We will now head into our next session, where we would be listening to mobility stories and projects from Brazil, South Africa, and from Kenya. Our first speaker in that session is Eveline Trevisan, who is the coordinator for sustainability and environment at the BHTrans Belo Horizonte's transport department in Brazil. In her current role, Eveline is coordinating the city's bicycle program, and she will share with us today what they are doing to promote active mobility. Over to you, Eveline.
Thank you, Stefanie. Thank you all. So, Belo Horizonte has made very little progress in relation to the implementation of cycling infrastructure. However, due to the social distancing measures imposed by the pandemic, we immediately formed a working group at BHTrans to study what was being done with regards to mobility in all other cities, and it was clear to us that cycling was an excellent option for commuting during this time. Thus, there was a clear directive from the BHTrans board of directors to develop a project that would connect the existing bike path with new ones. Okay, so we called a virtual meeting of our working group with the city's cyclists and decided to organize a ride on the main route that was chosen to start the implementation of the temporary bike lanes. A group of about 30 cyclists joined us in this process. There were 5 site assessments along the entire route, aiming at finding the best solutions to fit the temporary bike lanes into 2 existing road infrastructure. Okay. This is the first map we produced connecting the east and west regions of the city to the central area. The stretches in green are the existing bike path, and the stretches in red are the new ones. In the central area, the new bike lanes are connected to our BRT system. In total, there are around 30 kilometers of interconnected bicycle path. This is an example of the project developed, highlighting the necessary links between existing and new sections. This is an example of a section installed on the parking strip. In some places, the bicycle lanes were installed on car lanes, and in other places on the parking strip. This is the map we created to disseminate the project. This map was sent to the press and partners, along with a voice message through WhatsApp. On July 13th, we launched the cycling network, being very careful and taking all the precautions to inform drivers and cyclists. These are some photos of the infrastructure put into place. It is very simple. Our mobility education management team was on location during the first days, carrying out education campaign. This is a stretch of the cycling network in the central area. We made sure to install new signs to call the attention of drivers and also clear signs for cyclists. We also had a lot of support from our street agents, which increased the safety for the cyclists and guiding the drivers. In risky areas, we even had the presence of agents all day long. This is an example of the painting indicating the crossing of a bicycle lane and the agent monitoring its use. Here, another part of the cycling network in the central area being widely used by cyclists. Something very positive in this process was that when we launched the network, we told everyone that we would be open to improving unsafe locations and making all the necessary adjustments to the project. These are photos that already show this adjustment in avenue access points. In this point, we even implemented a new pedestrian strip. So fortunately, the bike lanes were so well received by the population that the municipality decided to double the number of installed bike lanes and turn them permanent. This is our team already studying the possible expansions of the network. So last but not least, this slide shows the important media coverage that the temporary bike lanes had. All the local newspaper released articles about the cycling network with a very positive focus. Thus, despite being a very difficult moment due to the pandemic, we had an excellent opportunity to get the bike back on the agenda, and in this very positive way, which has filled us with hope at this moment. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Eveline, for your great presentation. I think it's very beautiful to see the diversity of measures that you have taken, and especially also to see how you have moved from temporary ideas that are now turned into something more permanent. So I think it's a great example of what cities could embark on even during a difficult time of a pandemic. So thank you so much. We will have to move on to our next speaker, who is our youngest in the round. Mzikhona Mgedle is only 26 years of age, but he is already a very passionate activist for cycling in South Africa. Mzikhona has recently founded the Langa Bicycle Hub in Cape Town with the aim to normalize the use of the bicycle as a form of transport on the narrow roads in the township, also by encouraging more women and children onto bicycles. And besides being a cycling advocate, Mzikhona is also a musical artist. Mzikhona, over to you. We are very much looking forward to hear more about your work, and we would be introduced to your work through a short video that we are going to watch right now.
My name is Mzikhona Mgedle, cycling activist from Langa, Cape Town in South Africa. I'm 26 years of age, founder and managing director for Langa Bicycle Hub. We aim to normalize the use of bicycles as a form of transport on our narrow roads in our township. We are particularly keen to see more women and children on bicycles. We aim to transport people from informal settlements from gravel roads to tar roads with buggy bicycles, as we can help old and disabled people going to pension every month. The hub will be a home for all cycling needs in our community. It won't be only for cycling purposes. We will also fix wheelchairs for people in our community and bicycle repairs, including e-bicycles for local enterprise. Help us build back better for a future of cycling revolution in our communities. Bicycles.
So Mzikhona, you have showed us through your video that you have been very active in your local community, and you are surely already an inspiration to many over there, I believe. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about how you are supporting your local community, and also what is your vision for mobility in the future in your neighborhood?
Thank you so much, Stefanie. Hello, everyone. My name is Mzikhona Mgedle. I'm from South Africa in Langa Township in Cape Town. I'm 26 years of age. I'm a cycling activist. I've been in the cycling space for more than 5 years. So I've worked with some great initiatives, the Cyclovia Open Streets, where it was operating around Cape Town. So basically what we are trying to achieve, we're trying to bring back the cycling revolution in Africa. So we are focusing on getting more women on bicycles. We are focusing on making bicycles as an alternative transport in our narrow road. So I was personally touched seeing more speeding cars, killing women and children on the streets. So now this is the time for us to unite and share public spaces for all between drivers and riders on bicycles. So since the video cannot be played, I'm gonna just explain here firstly. We have the Heroes on Bikes campaign together with Culture Cycles, where we have donated 600 bicycles during the COVID times. These bicycles are helping for health workers, are helping people who are struggling to get to work. These bicycles are donated to operate for soup kitchens, where we had faced the second pandemic, which is food, and bicycles have been the backbone of transporting for logistics and also delivering food for bedridden. Going to the next slide. Can it move? Okay. So Langa Bicycle Hub has also had we are having a pilot project where we, so at this moment, many of our young people are not going to work. Some of them are unemployed. So basically we started this campaign to encourage people during these trying times to save on spending too much money on public transport. For those who can ride a bicycle. So this pilot project, it's Bike to Work, a group of people close to 52 members, Monday to Friday, starting from 8 a.m. up until we fetch them after. So we meet in a set location and cycle to workplaces in a set route for a bike bus. So this is the crew, young stars during these trying times, together with all of us under the Langa Bicycle Hub. We have operating kitchens which are cooking, and we deliver medication using bicycles. So community mamas are cooking fresh meals, and we take them to people who are physically challenged or sick in bed. We have played a huge role assisting also our frontline workers, where we were also delivering food parcels to positive plus cases in our community. So basically we ride these bicycles carrying food and medication connected to health local clinics in our townships. So when we get to a patient's house who's self-quarantining from their homes, we blow a whistle after communicating on a WhatsApp group or a WhatsApp chat, and then they come out, we drop the food parcel safety. So these bicycles have been useful to make sure that no one is left behind during these trying times. So bicycles, we hope to have bicycles as a mode of transport. This is myself and my daughter on this picture. So what I basically do ever since the lockdown started, she opened school, and then I'm taking her to school with other two parents who have joined me, and we hope to grow this way of transporting our legal ones and transporting people to pensions. So we have so many people who are disabled and old living in informal settlements who really needs a form of transport, because some of the public transport and private transport like Uber or Bolt, they can't go through travel roads. So we're hoping to have buggy bicycles to transport people who are disabled and old when they are going to their pensions funds every day, every month. So this is the hub. This is where we are located. We also build strong bicycles. We can build bicycles from the stretch. We go to registered companies who are operating within the industry of bicycles and ask for them if they can give us any spares or anything. And we watch YouTube videos on how to build bicycles, and we're encouraging all of us. So basically the hub is operating within 6 people at the moment and 11 volunteers. Some of them are unemployed and some of them are still schooling. So we are all in this together to make sure that bicycles are a transport mode in our community. So we build bicycles and we encourage more women and children to ride bicycles. So when it's flooded in places like this, where there's travel roads and shacks, people can't get out their houses. So we encourage them to use bicycles as a way of not flooding through the water. You can ride a bicycle. Okay. So I think that's it. I have 3 slides. Thank you so much. Just to finish off and say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share around the world, what's happening and how bicycles have increased. Just to talk about the challenges within our non-motorized transport. Some of the dedicated lines are very far from people who are cycling activists, from people who really need bicycles. So we're trying to make sure that we run learn to cycle classes every Saturdays and also raising awareness about cyclists. And we're getting so much attention around Cape Town, the media and interviews. And we hope to make sure that the project gets to grow and go to other informal settlements around South Africa. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mzikhona. And I think it's very amazing to see the work that you have embarked on and that you are starting in Cape Town. And I believe that you have truly found a local solution for a very big problem, which is mobility, which is COVID, which is marginalized groups. So congratulations and all the best to the Langa Bicycle Hub and the future of the cycling over there. We are now moving from Cape Town to Kenya to our next speaker, who is Edwins Mukabanah. Edwins is the chairman of the National Federation of Public Transport Operators in Kenya, and he will share from the perspective of a transport operator in an African context. Edwins is also the managing director of Kenya Bus Service and the vice president representing East Africa at the African Association of Public Transport, short UATP. He has more than 30 years of professional hands-on experience in public bus transport planning, operations, and management that he has gained both locally and globally. So over to you, Edwins, and please tell us more about the specific challenges that you see for the paratransit system in the African cities, and how can we ensure that those public transport systems continue to serve the majority of the population also in a post-pandemic world. Over to you.
Thank you, Stefanie. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to share this important information from Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks for giving me a glorious introduction, but I would also like to mention that I happen to be the chairman of the co-chair of the Task Force on Transformation and Transition to Public Transport, to BRT in Nairobi. Therefore, there's quite a lot of things that we are doing. What I would like to say is that there is a lot that has happened during this time. And I would like to look at how COVID-19 has affected our operations, how we have responded to this. Now, there came issues of social distancing. Now, this meant that we have to get stickers and put on buses to ensure that people do not sit close to each other. There were issues about hand cleaning, and that meant that as operators, we had to install washing gadgets and soap near the bus stops. We had, in addition, to buy body temperature guns to ensure that all passengers getting into vehicles do not have high temperatures. Of course, this increased the cost of doing business. We had to do sanitizing. We had to fumigate the vehicles and clean the vehicles to ensure that the vehicles are safe for people to get in. In addition, we had to increase the cost of doing business by testing crew to ensure that the crew that were getting into the vehicles to drive or to be the conductors had proper testing to ensure that they are not carriers or they are not infecting other passengers. Of course, they had to go in with masks, which we had to ensure that they are wearing. Then there was the compliance issue for a vehicle, especially the long distance vehicles. They had to ensure that those vehicles have complied, and you had to get a certificate from that. Then passengers, we had only to carry 50 passengers, 50% load factor of the passengers. Then there was the loss of passengers on school trips, for example. We had a curfew that ensured that the bus hours were reduced. We had people being restricted to come to metropolitan area, which had a lockdown, and tracing became another issue. So we had to create manifests. You can see that these were many things that we were trying to do together to ensure that even our own staff are not infected. So we tried to comply with everything else, but we had to park certain vehicles because of these huge costs. That meant also that we had to reschedule our loans and our creditors to ensure that we were able to meet the demands of our bankers and our creditors. That meant that we had to lay off staff, reduce salaries, and send some staff on unpaid leave. So it has been a very difficult time. But what are the challenges facing paratransit? There are many in Kenya. This is failure by the authorities to recognize public transport is a public good. Funding is a problem, both to do public transport infrastructure, invest in rolling stock, and even attract PPPs. There is the issue of policy and legal and regulatory frameworks, which means that then the institutions that are supposed to run public transport are just information. Planning on land use, integrated mobility plans are still missing, so these are big challenges. There are the issues, the perennial ones, the externalities of crashes, pollution, congestion, cartels, and corruption continue to bedevil our transport system. Now, there's no capacity building, so we have problems with operators who have not had good education in public transport, public officers who do not have correct competences, and even sometimes engineers who do not have the correct competences to do proper infrastructure. So we have to use consultants. There is no adoption of technology in transport. Simple things like cashless fare collection is a problem. So we're trying to see what we can do. And we still have lack of stakeholder participation. These continue to be challenges. Then we have lack of application of political and economic instruments. And therefore, we have things like simple licensing where you have oversupply of the equipment, and therefore competition is very, very stiff. So poor regulatory framework and the enforcement regime continues to be also a problem. Now, the industry is often and a lot of times criminalized. Everything that is done is seen as a criminal activity. Post-COVID-19, how can we ensure that PT or public transport continues to serve all residents in the city of Nairobi? We are trying to see how we can have lower generalized costs to ensure that people can afford public transport. We want a people-centered public transport so that policies and legislation and regulations are in tandem with that. Create institutions, organizations, or management institutions or regulatory institutions that have got the correct competences. Of course, mobility master plans, 25-year master plans would be very good to enable us to move forward. It has been very exciting to hear the story of Ethiopia and what they are doing. Transition plans and transformation plans to move BRT to move BRT is one other area that I think would assist us get affordable costs for transport. Funding, government subsidies, and public transport priority measures would assist us get to affordable transport. Of course, professionalizing the industry will increase efficiencies, and then use of ITS, intelligent transport systems, would also help to make the cities smart cities, green cities, and livable cities. Then creation of integrated transport management systems to manage traffic is an area that would assist us reduce the cost of doing business. We are very happy to see that the city of Nairobi now has put in place NMT facilities that is encouraging pedestrianization and bicycle usage. I would like to also to talk about what relief packages do we need to be provided for transport to ensure that social equity is there in Nairobi. And here we are talking that post-COVID-19, I think there would be need for an economic stimulus to assist the industry, subsidize integrated transport systems, public transport priority measures, like I've said, where we can favor high occupancy vehicles, dedicated lanes, and have good traffic management. Subsidies for social excluded would be good. Use of economic and political instruments, like I've said, would be a good thing. And then developing a subsidized school transport networks that would ensure that every child is able to access education. Most and more important is how do we manage the private car growth as we move forward. How can we then rebuild trust in public transport in line with SDGs? Management of externalities is important. Embracing sustainable mobility to green transport is important. Public promotion of affordable modes of transport like cycling would be key, and mass transport system. Putting in place measures to make public transport safe and secure would be good. Investing and providing equitable transport so that both the car owner and the person who doesn't have a car can access facilities like medical facilities. This is very important in creating equitable transport. Formalize PT to create decent jobs. The kind of jobs that are offered in public transport in paratransit are not the best, and it's high time we created good, decent jobs and careers in that area. Build capacity for professionalism and careers creation in the industry is key, and then adopt technology to create smart cities, like I've said. PPP frameworks will be important, and then quality of life and livable cities is what we'll be looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Edwins, for illustrating from your Kenyan perspective on the challenges the public transport sector is facing, but at the same time suggesting ways to stabilize the sector and to improve the sector in the future. It's very much interesting and appreciated. We are now heading to our last session, which is a discussion with a great expert in the field of sustainable mobility. We have Armin Wagner with us, who is the head of the sector project Sustainable Mobility at the German Organization for International Cooperation, in short, GIZ. So Armin, I would like to ask you a few questions, starting with a very simple one, but I think a very crucial one. Why do you think transport matters for a sustainable recovery, and how can COVID-19 recovery measures contribute to, let's say, building back better public transport systems in the long term?
Thank you, Steffi. I think it's a very important question, but it's not easy to answer it very straightforwardly, so to say. On the one hand side, it's obvious for all of us that transport has been heavily impacted by this COVID-19 crisis, and we have seen the link that transport provides between cities, climate, energy, our societies, our economies, and so on. And at the same time, we are observing that the way how we are organizing our cities, how we are organizing trade, how we are organizing our economies is going to change. I mean, we are at early stages of this transformation, but what we are observing is that the way we are working, the way we are interacting globally is going to change. Also on a local level, many workers are staying home, and now is an argument, oh, that's only the white collar workers who are staying home and working from their home office. But in a sense, many other workers who are supporting it, who are working in cafeterias, who are working as backup services and so on, are also staying remotely. So this is going to change the way how our cities are going to function. So it will be very essential for us as transport community to very carefully observe these trends and changes, and to design our response in a way that we can maximize the positive effects in a way that we are saving on transport emissions, that we are saving on expenses, that we can make sure that our responses are designed in a way to support, as you said, Build Back Better.
You mentioned the responses that are very important, coming out from the reflection of what we are experiencing right now. Are there any examples that you know of that are already inspiring, and examples that we can learn from when it comes to a more sustainable recovery? And how do we make those ideas and those innovations into permanent ones?
So I think we have seen one good example here in the presentation, and many other good examples. I mean, it was a very interesting and informative set of presentations. The pop-up bike lanes, which were designed and set up in Belo Horizonte. And we have seen this trend across many cities worldwide, both in Latin America, in Europe, in North America, in Asian and in African cities. And what is striking for me is that this happened so quickly and in many places at the same time, and cities started to learn from each other very quickly through webinars, through social media exchange, through all kind of exchanges. And I think this is a new way of working. And I think what we are observing now here is it's not that we have to wait for long-term plans or long-term elaborations. I mean, we need it in order to get our priorities right. But at the same time, we have seen a self-emancipation of a community, the transport community, who reacted to tremendous needs and has set up these types of pop-up infrastructure, pop-up bike lanes, all types of traffic calming solutions, new ideas for public transport in order to make it safe. The examples from Kenya have been shown on how to make bus rides more safe, and there are many other examples. So I think there's a profound change in the way the community is working together today, getting messages far more quickly across the world, developing solutions together. We have seen these examples from Colombia and in Bogota and many other places where people from medicine, from transport, from urban planning have worked together in order to design responses. So this is, from my perspective, the most striking thing. The very concrete infrastructure developments which are taking place, but also on the other hand side, the changes in the way how we are working together. Less hierarchy, far more horizontal collaboration between all kind of concerned planners, decision makers, and so on. And this is very encouraging from my perspective. And there's the second element. What we are observing is this type of let's test something. We do not wait for long-term plans and elaborations and discussions, but there's an encouraging trend to see many cities simply to test something, to set up pop-up infrastructure, to test it, to see is there, how people are responding to it, to adjust it, and to remove it if it doesn't work, or to keep it and even to expand it if they realize, yes, that's working very well. And this, again, is also an encouraging trend.
Thank you. And you mentioned the testing aspect of it. I mean, I think that many cities and countries have tested in a rather low-cost way and in a rather quick way. Yes. Different formats of, I mean, changing their mobility towards safer mobility, for example, through pop-up lanes and so on. But when we look at the overall transport sector, including public transport and so on, there might be some bigger investments needed. And I think one of the questions that I have is, how do we tap into sustainable financing packages in the post-COVID era, and how do we also get the financiers and the governments on board to do those, let's say, bigger investments into public transport, walking and cycling?
Yeah, you are of course fully right. We cannot change all cities worldwide just through pop-up infrastructure, but we have also to look at the long-term perspective. And again, from my perspective, it's very encouraging that many of these national and also regional stimulus and recovery package are actually looking pretty much at the question of sustainable investments, in a way that we are investing in public transport, that we are investing in all kinds of walking and cycling infrastructure. And this is also a very important question in looking at the question how our cities are functioning. I mean, it's very obvious now through this COVID-19 crisis that the question of access to public space is a very important one. So this impacts of COVID-19 were felt in a very bad way in places where many people have to crowd together, where people are living in unjust conditions. So in a way, our response to COVID-19, also in terms of the stimulus package, has to be in a way to be designed to provide more space. And with all these experiences, also through pop-up infrastructure, traffic calming, and so on, we can devise ideas and solutions which will help us to provide public space, be it squares, streets, but also public transport infrastructure in a more equitable way. And we can then find also solutions in order to provide suitable financing mechanisms. Unfortunately, many cities and countries are responding in this way, aiming to use new funds or to redistribute existing funds in a way to support these changes. So this is, as I said, very encouraging, and there are good examples across the world.
Thank you so much, Armin, for your insights. And it sounds quite positive and something that we should definitely follow through in the next few weeks and in the next few months. Unfortunately, we already have expanded over the 45 minutes and we have come to an end of this session. I would really like to warmly welcome all the speakers. For me, it's been quite an inspiring and exciting time together. I've been learning a lot. And we hope that this session has also been a bit of a wake-up call, let's say, to all the decision makers out there to reflect on how to plan and how to implement urban mobility projects with the goal to improve public transport, walking and cycling, rather than, for example, the infrastructure for the ever-increasing car use. Political leadership is, of course, key. I think Minister Moges has shown that very nicely from the case study of Ethiopia. But at the same time, we have also heard from Armin, for example, that the reorientation of financing institutions and governmental funding towards more investments in sustainable modes is very much needed. And with those few remarks, I want to thank the speakers again and also thank the audience for listening. I hope you have enjoyed the session as much as we did. Thank you very much.